to its original purpose. In 1894, Phineas Weatherby bequeathed his home and several parcels of land to the Library Association. The library moved to Phineas Weatherby's home at 21 Windsor Avenue in 1900. The various parcels of land, including the original West Acton Firehouse, later known as the home of the Acton Minutemen, were sold to support the Library Association. In 1962, library directors decided to offer the building as a gift to the town. Included in the endowment were the physical property, books, and all equipment, provided the town would accept and operate the library according to the conditions set forth in the offer. In 1962, at the annual town meeting, the voters of Acton accepted the library under the conditions presented. The conditions in the deed of transfer and the conditions accepted at the 1962 town meeting were: 1, that the town of Acton continue to operate the said property in accordance with the purpose and under the name of the Citizens Library Association of West Acton. The second condition deals with the election of trustees. 3, that in the event the town of Acton shall at any annual town meeting by a 4/5 vote to discontinue, transfer, and/or sell the said property or any part thereof, any proceeds are to be turned over to the Board of Trustees of the Acton Memorial Library, who will establish a fund to be known as West Acton Citizens Library Fund, the income of which is to be used for purchasing books for the Acton Memorial Library. It is my opinion that the selectmen are not acting in good faith in discontinuing the West Acton Citizens Library by not funding its budget. I ask your support to retain this historic one-room library. Our annual operating budget is under $25,000. Our annual budget includes one part-time staff member paid for a 26-hour work week and expenses, including books and periodicals. The budget covers the library being open to the public 24 hours a week. With volunteers, we actually provide the town 30 public hours of service. Our budget is supplemented by state library incentive grants and state municipal equalization grants, donations from the auxiliary, Friends of the Acton Libraries, and private donations. Last year, the auxiliary donated sufficient funds to the town to scrape and paint the exterior of the building. Last year, Daniel Megan completed his Eagle Scout project, painting the interior portion of the library. The town completed the remodeling and rehabilitation of the office portion of the building the first of this year. The auxiliary donated funds to carpet the office portion of the building early this year. According to Dean Charter, Director of Municipal Properties, the building is in good condition and no major repairs are expected in the near future. Trustees and volunteers have done their best to multiply every dollar received from the town. The community has supported this library for 110 years with its time and dollars. The library provides a valuable resource to the community, and I ask you to retain this valuable resource. Our volunteers provide services that are not and cannot be duplicated by another town department. Services such as delivering books to Suburban Manor, Windsor Green, and the Homebound would be a great loss. The location of the library was taken into consideration in selecting the site for Windsor Green. Senior citizens can walk to the library, and it provides a welcome rest on their trip to or from the lunch program at the Baptist Church. Young children and mothers with strollers are frequently seen walking to the library. Senior citizens and young children cannot walk to Acton Center from West Acton. Percy Wood, in his presentation to annual town meeting in 1962, said, "Please bear in mind, we are not asking the town to inaugurate and finance some new and outsized project which might or might not succeed, but rather offering an already established institution which is filling a very useful place and has possibilities for large usefulness." In a 1967 article in the Assabet Valley Beacon, Percy Woods wrote, "May it, the library, continue to serve the public and remain a blessing to the community for many years to come." His words are valid today. It is my understanding that the primary duty of the selectmen is to implement the vote of town meeting. Selectmen have decided to ignore the 1962 town meeting vote and discontinue this historic library by simply not funding their budget. This citizen's petition asks you, the voters, to honor the 1962 annual town meeting vote to accept the endowment of the West Acton Citizens Library and the conditions attached. I asked you to fund the library for fiscal year 1994 and not discontinue service without a 4/5 vote at town meeting. Mr. Moderator, the residents of Windsor Green have given me a brief letter to read in their behalf. I ask your permission to read this letter.
Go right ahead.
My fellow townspeople, we are residents of Windsor Green. We are not at town meeting tonight because we're not as mobile as we'd like to be, and it is exceedingly difficult for us to get there. But because we feel so strongly about the continued presence of the Citizens Library, we are sending this letter with the hope that our feelings will be heard. The library is important to us, not only because we read, but also because it provides us with a link to the rest of the community. Most of us enjoy walking the quarter mile to the library. It's a healthy stroll and particularly pleasant on these beautiful spring days. Other times we must rely on rides from family or friends, and then on those occasions when we are shut in due to weather or illness, the library sends books to us on a regular basis. We appreciate this service more than you can know. We need this little library because it is so close and so service-oriented. It helps us to maintain our independence and our interest in the outside world. Please don't let it close. Sincerely. This letter is signed by 40 residents of Windsor Green. In closing, I have a question I would like to ask the selectmen. If this article does not pass, it is my understanding that the doors of the library will close July 1st, 1993. What are your plans for the present collection of over 1,000 volumes? And what are your ultimate plans for the disposition of the property? Thank you.
Mrs. Finn?
I'll begin by answering Mrs. Bissell's two questions and then speak for the Board of Selectmen on this article. As Ms. Bissell and I discussed, we will meet with the library trustees immediately after the decision is made to begin to work together on the disposition of the materials of the library. One of the suggestions has been moving them to the Memorial Library, but that is something that we will need to work out. And in terms of the property, it would be closed. We would not dispose of the property. I'd like to explain why the Board of Selectmen urges you to vote no on this article. Oops, he's gone. We all, each of us, and each of you have different priorities for town services. But it is our responsibility to you, as your elected representatives, in a time of shrinking resources, to maintain the best balance of services that we can, to look at each and every service in the context of the entire community and all of its needs. When you have a priority that you don't want to lose, the cost of this item seems small, and it seems better to cut something else in order to keep it. We cannot find that something else that no one cares about anymore because it isn't there. We need to look at all your service needs, not just library services, which are clearly very important to you, but public safety, public health, social services, bylaw and law enforcement, conservation, environmental protection, and so on. You tell us, and you've told us last night and tonight, to manage your tax dollars and provide these services cost effectively, to look for cost efficiencies, seek economies of scale, consolidate, even regionalize where we can. We are doing this. For this reason, we cannot continue to fund the operation of two separate libraries. We must consolidate these services under one roof. Please do not think that we do not see this as a valuable service, that we do not agree with the previous speaker. We do. The Board of Selectmen understands the value of the West Acton Library, its place in our history, its personal home-based services, its contribution to the village character that this community cares so much. Most of you know of my support for the villages. Other members of the board have also been dedicated to maintaining village services, and the sense of community that we know they bring. This is the New England small-town character that we are all trying to preserve, but these goals and values are in direct conflict with our need to consolidate, regionalize, and seek economies of scale. New England small-town services are not always cost-efficient. These two goals are often in direct conflict. If you approve this article, we will have to find the money. Remember, we have to assume we're still working with the B budget. We cannot assume, especially given the pretty close vote last night, that we're working with a B plus budget. We are working with a B budget. And we also have to assume that our town employees will negotiate, will hold at the 2% that's included in that budget. We developed a clear list of cuts under the B budget. Remember the double line that Nancy showed you earlier? Well, the bottom dark line is where we are under the B budget. And just below that bottom line is, I hate to use FTE, but 0.35 FTE in the building department. That would not quite provide enough to fund this article. The building department is the one that inspects and enforces our bylaws, issues permits. In fact, it's the department that put this meeting together tonight. Just below that are 2 full-time equivalents in the highway department. That is the only place we could look under the B budget to fund this article. Finally, I'd like to set the record straight about the legal issues involved in underfunding the library. I've been up here doing slides as often as the others. This is the excerpt from the 1962 town meeting where voters accepted the gift of the property of the Citizens Library Association building with the following conditions. One, that the town of Acton continue to operate the said property in accordance with the purposes, etc. Two, that the town of Acton shall elect at the annual town meeting a board of three trustees. And three, that in the event the town of Acton shall at any annual town meeting by a 4/5 vote to discontinue, transfer, and/or sell the said property, any proceeds are to be turned over to the Board of Trustees of the Acton Memorial Library. The first condition appears to order the continuation of the operation of the library, but numerous lawsuits around the state have confirmed the rights of cities and towns to make budget decisions that are contrary to either current collective bargaining agreements or, in this case, a budget item. If the voters decide that there is no money for the West Acton Library by defeating the override, which you have done, or by defeating this article, no one can mandate that it be spent anyway. The third condition relates to the town meeting vote, and you will notice it only applies if the town is proposing to discontinue, transfer, or sell the property, and we are not doing that. If that ever should be proposed, then we would come back to you for a 4/5 vote of town meeting. One recourse that has already been suggested would be for a group of citizens to privatize the West Acton Library. The town could transfer ownership of the building to this group. While recognizing this is a substantial undertaking for a group of citizens, it can be done. Other groups of Acton citizens have taken on such challenges, and the Citizens Library would no longer be a subject of A and B budgets. Even if you vote this article tonight, I want it to be clear that for the reasons that I have given to you in terms of our need to consolidate, look for efficiencies, coordinate library services under one roof, we will be back every year with this item under the B budget. That is our recommendation to you, and it's something that you will need to address every year. In conclusion, the selectmen recognize that the West Acton Citizens Library is a valuable community service, that no one wants to see it cut. But if you support this article, you are not taking the direction you so often give us. Show some leadership, look for savings, increase efficiencies, consolidate and maintain a balance of services. It is with sincere regret that the selectmen urge you to vote no on Article 17.
From the Finance Committee, Mr. Cohout.
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee has elected not to recommend this article.
All right, I see a number of people waiting to talk on this article. I'll start at this microphone, microphone 3.
Thank you.
And then just go around the room.
Mr. Moderator, my name is Annette Lockery. I live on Windsor Avenue. I'm 4'10", and I'm married to a man who's 6'7". So I'm uniquely qualified, I think, to talk about the relative merits of small versus large. I think in Acton, we're very, very lucky because we have a very magnificent large library, and we have a quaint, charming, small library in the Citizens Library. They're both part of the same town system, and they both adhere to all the state regulations and laws about libraries, but they have very different personalities and characters. Citizens Library is unique because it's small. It's not the same thing, and it's not two libraries just like each other. So in closing Citizens Library, we're not just eliminating a second library. To fund this is to maintain a 110-year-old tradition, a tradition, I might add, which began 7 years before the Memorial Library opened. So Citizens is the first library and the oldest library in Acton. But there's no need to challenge between the two libraries because they're both very different and they augment each other in terms of the services they provide to the communities. Even though Citizen is as old and it's traditional and it's historic, it is used. It doesn't sit there empty, costing us money. It's used 5 days a week that it's in operation. It's utilized by over 1,000 of us who live in Acton. It's used by us from all over the town of Acton, in all of the villages. The use of Citizens Library has increased over time and continues to grow. In the past 5-year period alone, for example, utilization has increased by 26%. The age group that uses Citizens Library is varied. I bring my 2-year-old there and their children younger, and there are also people approaching 100 who walk there and use the library. There's a very active volunteer program, and the volunteers range from 10 years old to 82 years old. And it has been mentioned that they're willingly and anxiously for many hours a week. The service a library provides to the elderly clearly is something that the town and you and I as citizens can be very, very proud of as a commitment, a measure of our commitment to the elderly and to the children, I might add. Citizens Library is very informal, warm, and comfortable. And it's a very, very nice way to introduce your children into the whole idea of what a library is all about. The auxiliary has been mentioned in terms of the activity it does. And I would just point out that by doing all of these things, by raising funds, by soliciting volunteer activities, it reduces the amount you and I pay in taxes to keep this library facility open. It's a tremendous service for a very small amount of money. Before we got into money discussions last night, the amount that we had agreed to pay for the town budget was $11.5 million. We're talking here about the cost of this library being $24,528. That's 1/5 of 1% of the town's budget. To give you an idea of what that is in terms of relative size, the appropriation of Citizens Library in 1983 was less than 5% of Memorial Library's budget. Again, they're different facilities and they're both fine facilities, but it was less than 5%. Not very costly. 1/5 of 1% on $10, for example, is 2 cents. I would just urge that the town of Acton has had this library for 110 years. It's provided a valuable service for citizens throughout the town, children, adults, and senior citizens. This library has been kept open through good times and hard times, through the Depression, where our grandparents saw fit to keep it open and to fund it. And I'm not sure that today's difficult economic times are anywhere near what they were in the Depression, but the values were maintained to keep it open. I would leave you with a question to think about. A loaf of bread, a half a gallon of milk, a bag of potato chips or pretzels, a large order of French fries at McDonald's, a liter of soda. You know what they all have in common? Each one costs about $1.35. That's what your cost is per year to fund Citizens Library. The money in question here is not an additional funding. It's the sole support of this library. It's a question of, for one bad year, closing down this library, which has been enacted all these years. Please, let us keep this proud, homegrown gem alive. Vote for the warrant. Thank you.
Mr. Cady?
Yes, I'd like to make 3 points I could on this article. Number one, Mr. Moderator, if I understood you correctly in the motion, that this was an expenditure out of free cash.
That's correct.
There is $30,000 left in the free cash budget, if I read the last slide correctly. Estimated. All right. So if they're off by 5,000, it's there. If it's more than 5,000 off than their estimate, then it's not there. And some portion of it would have to be made up out of a FTE .0000 reduction. So it isn't correct. As the motion is read, if the 30,000 available, then it is funded out of the free cash, and and the B budget, assuming no override passing of the B plus, would not impact the B budget unless there's some gross estimate. If the override passes again, we have $200,000 of which this funds can be allocated or transferred into free cash from that amount to cover it. And I think that a light at 62 versus a library that's been here for 110 years I would rather have the library and not the light, or the $50,000 for a computer study could be eliminated. Take half of that this year, do half the study this year, half the next year, whatever. I would rather see no computer study and the library funded for 2 years. That's the first point. Second point is the argument that's written in this document offends me, especially the last statement. It says here that due to lack of fiscal resources is a painful process, but it's a process that the selectmen feel should be managed in a coordinated manner, rather than have any group seek to have their favorite service held harmless via a citizen's petition such as this. If that's putting it in my face, that's the worst wording of any article I've ever seen in this town. My third point is that I grew up in West Acton. I moved there in 1955. I read my first book from that library. I went up to town. And I saw there used to be a railroad station there, and they used to work with the guy. I used to crank the gates when they finally and open and close the gates when I was young, and sit there and with a guy and learn to read. Sit there and wait for my father to come home, reading books from the library. Right? Not too many people can go back that far in this town and be as young as I am. I lost the West Acton train station. We've lost the cranking mechanism. We lost the South Acton train. Now we're going to lose the whistles. I will not give up the West Acton Library.
Gentleman at microphone 1.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Larry Roberts, 44 Windsor Avenue.
That's right.
I will freely admit to being biased on this question, having over 40 years of experience at the West Acton Citizens Library. I, too, probably read my first book there. However, I wouldn't like to concentrate on that issue. What I'd like to concentrate on is a point that was briefly touched on just a moment ago, and that is that this is a perfect example of why the citizens of this town need to take back the process of deciding what our priorities are to ourselves, rather than to leave them in a process where we are threatened, as we were a moment ago, with having to do this again every year if we really want to have this service, because it will always be at the bottom of the list of the selectmen. Now, if that's the case, and if we, in fact, do make this vote pass tonight, what they're telling us is that that may be the case, that may be what the citizens of the town want, but that's not what the selectmen want, and so it's going to be on the bottom of the budget next year, and we'll have to fight the same way. I believe that a vote for this article is a vote to take back control of to the destiny of this town, to the voters of this town, and not to leave it to an arbitrary process over which we have little control. Thank you.
The lady at the back microphone.
Mr. Moderator, my name is Priscilla Mead, and I live at 18 Wright Terrace in West Acton. I would like to add my voice and speak to the continuation of the funding of this West Acton Citizens Library. Anything that we can do to keep it open. I am one of those fourth-generation voters in Acton, and I'm able to stand here tonight who regards this library as a unique treasure for all Acton citizens. And I add my emphasis to all the remarks that have been made so ably before. I will skip down to a very poignant point. I think one of the things that I've learned about the Acton Library is that in addition to the books, there's always a friendly face there, and always a friendly person who can discuss and help people and help them in untold ways in resolution of some of their ideas and make things happen for them. At a time in our lives when we are hopeful of preserving remaining village assets and historical sites, I find it very sorrowful to see a community resource, a historical lending library, the first one in Acton, of 110 years old, be closed. Let's reach out to preserve this treasure, and with a great measure of our appreciation and concern, let's let this old friend stay on.
Lady at microphone 5.
My name is B.J. Wellborn. I live at 1 Winter Street in Acton. Mr. Moderator, I would like permission to read a one-paragraph statement from a non-voter, my 9-year-old daughter.
Well, all right.
She wanted to come, but it's past her bedtime. Hi, my name is Georgie Arendt. I live at 1 Winter Street in West Acton. The library is a perfect place to just sit down and wonder about things. They have all my favorite books there too, mysteries and other stuff. My mom doesn't let my sister and I watch a lot of TV, so riding our bikes to the library is the best way to be entertained. She ran this through the spelling check, but not the grammar check on the computer. She says, us children need to have time in our life to think about almost anything that's important. Please vote for keeping the library in West Acton open. Thank you.
Is there anyone standing who wishes to speak in opposition to this? Okay, let's take one in opposition to it. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Dick Wagman. As I previously introduced myself, I do not live in West Acton. I'm sorry to hear all of the debate up to this time the way it has gone, because I believe most of the previous speakers have essentially missed the point. Most of them have spoken about how great a place the library is, how it provides fine services, and what it has meant to them and others all this time. I find nothing in that I can disagree with. The fact is, we simply don't have money these days. We have a budget that we are forced to reduce in terribly painful ways, and as our selectmen have told us repeatedly, we're at the point of cutting meat. I voted for the override recently. I would have liked to have seen money in the budget for this thing. We're stuck with a B budget at this point. Unless we get a B plus budget there, I believe it's a mistake to simply transfer our money to this one resource and leave other sources underfunded, as the selectmen have done. I would like to commend the selectmen for having had the courage to reduce things that are painful in many cases. I find this painful also. I support libraries, but I believe we're making a mistake if we single out this particular resource as something to preserve in a time of downward money. I urge you to vote against this motion. Thank you.
Mrs. Gardner?
Hill Road. I live on the opposite side of town and haven't been in the West Acton Citizens Library for probably 15 years. But I did serve as a trustee of the West Acton Citizens Library at one point. I think over the last night and a half, we've heard a lot about education and leadership of the town. I think the West Acton Citizens Library represents the fabric of this town, and I urge everyone in the hall to support the freedom of citizens to put an article on the town meeting and bring it to a vote at town meeting floor.
Is anybody left standing who wishes to oppose this? Everybody is for it. Let's take one more speaker.
Mr.
Ahern.
Moderator, Dennis Ahern, Central Street in West Acton. I'd like to speak first from my position as Vice Chair of the West Acton Village Planning Committee. This committee has been meeting over more than the past year on a regular basis and holding public hearings to discuss a projected plan for the future development of West Acton. At our meeting on April 6th, it was unanimously voted that we say, whereas survey respondents and participants in public meetings have repeatedly cited the Citizens Library of West Acton as a valuable asset to the community, the members of the West Acton Village Planning Committee recommend that the town of Acton re-examine the important role the Citizens Library has played in the quality of life for its residents, young and old. Now, speaking as a private citizen, I'm concerned about the way this came about. It seems we are being told it's really naughty for someone to have put a warrant article on the warrant and to do an end run around the wonderful budget that we've been presented. I have never seen a dollar amount yet for the personnel administrator. I don't know how many years we could fund the Citizens Library with that amount, but we have not been given that option. And we've been going through this for several years. Every year it's the same thing. We need an override. What do? It's round up the usual hostages. I'm quite frankly sick of it. And I think that we need to move back to some more citizen control of what our budget line items are and what is on the warrant and what is in the budget. Thank you.
We'll take one final speaker. Yes, sir. Microphone 1. It's on.
My name is Daniel Megan. I'm the Eagle Scout who painted the Citizens Library, and I'm here tonight as a voter who supports this type of library. Like someone said earlier, this is the fabric of our beautiful town, and we must keep this open. And the last time I checked, this is a democracy, and this is a town meeting, and we put this on the ballot, and we have the right to vote for this. So I think we should really think about what we're doing here. It's been open for 110 years. If we close it now, it will never be reopened. We must vote for this. This is a symbol of the people of Acton taking control of their money. There are things in this town that need to be cut, and I do agree with the selectmen. It's not in the town. It's in the schools, but it's beyond that. We must come together and vote for our library. There are things that need to be cut.
Are we ready to vote on this? Ready to vote? Great. You have one question, sir? Go ahead, ask your question.
I was wondering whether in the spirit of compromise that we've tried to have in this town meeting, that it'd be possible to add an amendment or a rider to this petition, which would allow it to happen only if the override budget was passed, and then there'd be we wouldn't be put between a rock and a hard place like we seem to be being put tonight. Is that possible? With exactly the same wording that's on the addition to the omnibus budget.
Let me just confer with the town council for a moment. Would you just stand up, please, sir? Thank you very much. We could do that, but then we'd have to change the funding mechanism from taking it out of free cash to raise and appropriate. If you have a question on why, I'll refer it to the town council.
No, it's okay.
Because when he told me, I really didn't understand it. I pretended I did. Actually, I did understand it, but he hasn't worked very much at this town meeting. Now, we could do that if you really want to. Now, this is an interesting study in democracy. Now, you were just saying you wanted to take this back.
In fact,
Here's a citizen who might want to make an amendment. Of course, he might not want to make the amendment, too.
This is my very first town meeting. In fact, I only became a citizen this year.
Well, thank you for coming, by the way.
And one of the reasons I did, and one of the primary motivators for it, was town meeting. The fact that I could come along and have a voice rather than have somebody who I elected speak for me and maybe actually not represent my views, which seems to be what a large majority of the people here feel about what the selectmen are doing with the budget at the moment, that this would provide us a way to both deal with the problem of not having enough money. I don't want to cut somebody out of the highway department because I believe we do need someone in the highway department, but if we're going to do it, then yes, I do want to propose the amendment.
I think the money was to be raised from free cash.
Well, can't we put an either-or in? I mean, we don't...
Well, you just made a statement about taking some other money out of the budget. If it's raised from free cash, I would ask the selectmen to tell you if that would happen.
Well, as I indicated, we were estimating $30,000 in free cash. This would take us down around $6,000. That's for electrical engineering terminology, that's down into the static or the noise. And that's in part why we're saying that we would think we would have to take it out of other budget items ultimately, because I don't think we dare go that close to the item. We haven't polled the board, but speaking personally, if you want to appropriate the money, I don't think it's necessary to go through the conditional approach for this amount of money. But Mr. Moderator, if I could just have a moment's indulgence, let me respond in part to all the comments that have been made about why you're unhappy that the selectmen look with disfavor on this sort of an article. Let me just tell you very briefly what our rationale is in that regard. We're looking forward, unfortunately, to a series of years where we think we're going to be cutting. And we saw this as the camel's nose in the tent. There's no reason, following this precedent, and it's clear what the vote's going to be here tonight, that the fire department, the police department, the other library, the senior center, whatever, we can expect that we may well have citizens' petitions for each of those departments appealing essentially cuts that we're trying to spread around evenly. And I would suggest that that's not really a good way to run a government, but if that's what you want, this is a step in that direction.
You still have a right, sir, to make your amendment, but let me...
Could I just have a clarification then? It sounds like we're not caught between a rock and a hard place. Is that right?
Far be it from me to try to define either.
Mrs. Fanton should maybe answer the question because she was the one who brought it up.
Let me do this. This may help you, okay? And it may not. This is not a vote on this article, all right? But if we were to vote on it now, how many of you would say aye? How many of you would be opposed? Well, that's if we were to vote on it.
But if we don't have the money, we don't have the money. That's why I'm asking the question.
Okay, Mrs. Fenton.
Yes, in answer to his question, we did discuss that specifically and agreed, as Doré said, that we didn't dare go down to $6,000 so that we would have to look at further cuts in the budget.
Okay, now, you may amend if you wish. And again, you may not. I don't want to influence you not to do this.
I'm influenced. That's okay. I'll drop it.
I'm sorry. All right. All in favor of the motion as read, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. By the way, thank you very much. Let's see, Article 18. We passed that by consent. Article 19, we passed by consent. Article 20, which deals with use of tobacco and smoking products. Mrs. Tavernier moves that the town bylaws be amended as set forth in this article.
I gotta go for a smoke. You gonna miss that big vote?
I'm just going to stop that motion because it isn't correct. Okay, this motion is going to sound a little bit awkward, but it is correct, and we'll explain to you why. Article 20, Mrs. Tavernier moves that the town bylaws be amended as set forth in the article, except that Section E. One, okay. Okay, well, thank you. Before I do the article again, I have a small vial of pills here if somebody has lost them. It's a small brown vial with a brown top, and they're small white pills. I will leave it with the town clerk.
Sounds like an amulet than a vial of.
All right, once again to the motion. Mrs. Tavernier moves that the town bylaws be amended as set forth in this article, except that Section E26 eliminate Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 111, Section 31 and. Do I hear a second? It's been moved and seconded. Mrs. Tavernier.
The selectmen support this article. I believe the Board of Health is going to present it.
All right, fine. From the Board of Health. You have view graphs? You do? Okay.
Hi, good evening. I'm Bill McInnes from the Acton Board of Health. I have two pieces of good news for you tonight. First piece of good news is I'm not going to ask you for any money. And Second piece of good news is I have a presentation, but I'll keep it very short. And if there are any questions, then hopefully the moderator will allow me to address them after the presentation. The first bylaw that we're asking you to vote on tonight deals with the use of tobacco products in public. It actually has very minimal impact on people in the town because existing town policies and state laws already control most of the things that this bylaw addresses. The bylaw, however, would strengthen and make uniform and consolidate these town policies, school department policies, and also amplify the state law. I would point out that we're talking about protecting the public health is from what's called environmental tobacco smoke. That's the smoke which fills an airspace when somebody in that airspace is smoking tobacco. And in some cases, that environmental tobacco smoke can affect the health of the people who are not smoking in the room. This bylaw is based on model language provided by the state. As I mentioned later, we'll be approximately the 100th town in this state to enact regulations in this area. We've held approximately 9 public meetings. We held 1 advertised public hearing on this bylaw, and we've got substantial public input in it. The purpose of the bylaws is fairly straightforward. It's to provide some limited protection to the public and improve the public health by protecting them from environmental tobacco smoke. And also, as I mentioned, to consolidate existing town laws and school department policy. Okay, the next chart, the effect of the bylaw, just very briefly. Currently, as the first 3 bullets address what the existing laws already are. The state law already prohibits smoking in many public areas, such as retail food establishments, child care centers, etc. The town policy prohibits smoking in all municipal buildings, including this one tonight. And school board, both the Acton and regional school board policy prohibits smoking in any school buildings. Okay, those are included in this bylaw. The bylaw also includes a few other areas, such as hotel lobbies and enclosed shopping malls. We don't have any enclosed shopping malls. If we ever do, they'd be covered. And as far as I know, I'm not sure we have any hotel lobbies. So the effect is actually fairly minimal in most cases. The one exception is that Acton currently requires 25% no smoking areas in restaurants. This bylaw would increase that to 75%. And I'll address that in a second. We have a separate chart on that. Just point out that in cases of manifest injustice, this bylaw can be buried by the Board of Health. And we feel that we've designed this bylaw so that if you pass it, it'll have no significant impact on those adults who choose to smoke in this town. Okay, the next chart on restaurants, I know that's where we get most of the comments on this bylaw. Many questions we've gotten are how we chose the 75%. Currently, based on statistics from the Department of Public Health, 23% of the adults in Massachusetts smoke. That would imply then that 77% do not. If you include children, the percentage of the total population that does not smoke exceeds 85%. And I would just point out that several nearby communities, Lexington, Bedford, Westford, Chelmsford, Watertown, and Needham, have also implemented 75% or greater no smoking in their restaurants and have not suffered any serious setbacks. And I mentioned the top of it, we have also solicited comments from the restaurant owners, and we're not aware of any objections. One issue that came up was, should Acton be regulating the health environment of a private business? One person made a comment, perhaps people that do not wish to be in a smoky restaurant should go somewhere else. I would point out just in these brief examples that it's well established that government can regulate the health environment of a private business. If any of you work with Class A carcinogens, which is what cigarette smoke is classified as, your employer is required to protect you from those carcinogens. And the Acton Board of Health already does regulate the health environment of restaurants. If there was asbestos crumbling from the ceiling and landing in the food, we would stop that. If there was unsanitary conditions in the kitchen, we would certainly stop that. So there is certainly precedent for the town to regulate the health environment in a restaurant. And as a last point, a restaurant is truly open to the public. It can't exclude people because they, except, I guess, on ability to pay. But you are out in public when you're in a restaurant, and therefore we feel regulations to protect the public health are appropriate in a restaurant. And just very quickly, the last chart, to let you know, the prohibitions on public area smoking would take effect in 30 days, and the seating requirements for restaurants would take effect in 60 days. So in conclusion, I'd ask you to please support this bylaw. Thank you.
Are there comments from the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee makes no recommendation.
All right. Mr. Aronson.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Steve Aronson, 236 Newtown Road. But at this time, I am speaking on behalf of the Executive Committee of the Acton Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber, representing over 240 businesses, most of whom operate in Acton, opposes passage of Article 20 for a number of reasons. Because so many of our businesses are owned by people who are not residents of the town, frequently the Chamber is their only means to avoid taxation without representation. It's been our experience that Acton has not always been a place that invites businesses to move in or to stay once they are here. It sometimes appears that both the zoning laws and the master plan have, for the most part, been crafted to impede the special needs of operating a business successfully. Many Acton opponents of business fail to appreciate the basics of economics. Businesses represent about 20% of Acton's tax base and use no more town services than residents do. If there are more businesses, your personal taxes will go down. If there are fewer businesses, your personal taxes will go up. Article 20 and the Board of Health are well-intentioned, but we feel it goes far beyond reasonable and businesslike bounds. While most of us don't smoke, and many don't like to be around smoke, we believe that it should be left up to each business to decide how and where smoking should be permitted. It is appropriate for the town and schools and other municipal-oriented activities to follow the law about not allowing smoking in publicly owned facilities. But we believe that the town is going too far in mandating what should be done in privately owned buildings. Town meeting members who have heard about this article and have read it carefully will see that it includes all privately owned buildings, not just restaurants, retail establishments, motels, and sports arenas, but all buildings that include stairways, entrances, hallways, restrooms, elevators, and also any clubs and rooms that may be used for public meetings. This rule, therefore, will include any office building, any industrial building, any store, and frankly, many homes. This bylaw will force restaurants to change their proportion of smoking, non-smoking space, regardless of the desires of their patrons, from 25% to 75%. The change must take place within 60 days. There's been no consideration by the town to understand either the cost or impact for that business to make such a drastic and strategic change in such an unreasonable time frame. We believe the law of supply and demand ought to be sufficient to induce private establishments to protect their clients and customers in a manner that meets their needs. If patrons are not happy with the quality of air in a private place, they will let the owner know in one way or another. As proof, we know there are already many private businesses that have smoke-free buildings. But that's the point. Private decisions should be made by private owners in a sense of competition and enterprise, not mandated by the town. Acton already has a regulation against smoking in public facilities. Let it stand. The Acton Chamber of Commerce respectfully recommends that you vote against Article 20. We believe it goes much too far. Thank you.
Now, comments, I'll start at microphone 1.
Hi, my name is Josh Chernin, and I live on Central Street. I happen to be a smoker. I can support most of this article, except for the references to private businesses. I happen to work in a private business which is not located in Acton, happens to be in an old line industry. Well over half the people happen to smoke at this place. We've managed to work out various compromises which work for our business, satisfy the smokers and the non-smokers. As I say, I can support most of this article, except for the references to the private businesses which do not cater to a general audience. For instance, restaurants and movie theaters. I would like to propose an amendment, except I don't know how to word it, that would strike from this article references to private businesses except for those that are designed specifically for the public to use, such as restaurants and movie theaters. As I say, I don't know how to word it, but if someone can help me with that, I'd support it. Thank you.
Did you wish to respond to that?
Yes, I did. Thank you. I feel more comfortable being able to move around. These regulations were based, as I said, on model regulations provided by the state, and we got interpretations. They were provided by the Department of Public Health, and we have interpretations of what they are construed to mean. The definition of a public area is an enclosed indoor area when open to and used by the general public. That's the definition. Okay, it then follows that with examples. Okay, a private workplace such as digital or anything like that is not open to the general public. You need to be an employee to go there. Okay, this does not cover private businesses. So they are not included in this, and I don't think that should be a problem in passing the bylaw as it stands. There's no intention to regulate areas that are not open to the general public. A restaurant is open to the general public. Hotels, public transit facilities, elevators, by the way, are already prohibited smoking by state law, as you mentioned. Those are public, open to the public, and are covered by this bylaw. Private businesses are not.
Does that answer your question, sir?
I guess in a way, although it isn't really clear from the wording here, because it says common areas in privately owned buildings, and that could be construed to mean any common area in any privately owned building.
No, as I mentioned, those are examples, and what they are addressing is that occasionally, as an example, the town does not own this building. I believe this is owned by the regional school district. So I guess it is actually publicly held, but it's, I believe, leased to the town at some nominal cost. As an example, a town may have to lease a football stadium to hold the next town meeting if enough people come. Okay, since that would be a public meeting and would be open to the general public, under this bylaw, smoking would be prohibited in that case. However, it would not mean that any other use of that football stadium that's privately owned would be prohibited from smoking.
So what you're saying is in a private business is not covered.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Lady at the front microphone.
Dorothy Campbell, 34 Robin Street. I wanted to ask the Department of Health a question about this bylaw, and then I wanted to speak in favor of it. It's not clear from the wording to me whether lounges, bars, type places where alcohol is the primary product are covered under this. I understand currently they are excluded from these laws.
That's something we did consider. I'm sorry, I stepped on you. Most of the places in town that have a bar also serve food, and they have a food license. The way we define the law is that any place that has a food license is covered by this bylaw, and yes, their seats are included.
So the bar area is also included?
That's correct, and we have solicited comments from several restaurant owners who did not see that as a problem. It's also in the neighboring communities where they are also at 75% no smoking, also include the bar areas. And I'm not aware of any restaurants in Lexington or Bedford that have been driven out of business by going to 75% no smoking. And they've been that way for about 4 years now.
Oh, I quite agree with you. I wanted to speak in favor of this. We're not talking about personal preference here. We're talking about the health of people who have to breathe this smoke. Most people who are non-smokers and who feel very strongly about this, like myself, who is a severe asthmatic, have never intended to deprive smokers of the right to inhale. We just wish to deprive them of the right to exhale in an area where we have to breathe. I've had many discussions concerning this with Raytheon, by whom I'm employed, in terms of discussing filters, the quality of filters, and the ability of filters to filter this kinds of material out of the air. And this is an ongoing discussion at Raytheon in a private employer. So just to even put people, 10 feet away from you and claim that this is giving you a smoke-free environment is ludicrous. Inhaled smoke contributes to one of the largest sources of health costs today, and we're always talking about saving money. This is a primary place to start, so I hope all of you will certainly aid my health and vote to pass this today. Thank you.
We're getting down toward the end. Does anybody wish to speak in opposition to this? You're waiting at the microphone patiently. Can you make your remarks fairly quickly?
I'll be brief, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you.
My name's David Black. I live... All right, it's on now. My name's David Black. I live on Central Street. I want to urge members of town meeting to support this article. My wife is both allergic to and highly sensitive to cigarette smoke. The change in the percentage of restaurant seating from 25% to 75% could make the difference between a pleasant dinner out and an unfortunate experience in which she comes home rather nauseated and extremely upset. This is similar to the medical effects given by the last speaker. I appreciate the arguments from the Chamber of Commerce, but they sound to me an awful lot like the arguments made in the Deep South in the days of segregation about private choice and privately owned facilities. I'm very disappointed to hear them again. I urge your support for this article. Thank you for your time.
Last speaker.
Okay, mine will only take 2 minutes. My name is Harriet Cotis, and I live at 229 Bankside Hollow. I would like to urge those here to vote in favor of Article 20 on the use of tobacco and smoking products for the following reasons. Environmental tobacco smoke contains 4,700 chemical compounds, 43 of which are carcinogenic. The risk of exposure is by no means a minor health hazard. Secondhand smoke actually contains more toxins than the filtered smoke inhaled by the smoker. 50 times more ammonia, 5 times more carbon monoxide, and twice the tar. You probably remember when Perrier water was pulled from the market when it was found to contain benzene levels up to 4 times what is allowed under federal standards. Meanwhile, the Surgeon General's report estimated the benzene content of cigarette smoke to be 2,000 times higher than that. Benzene is a cancer-causing substance for which the EPA does not recognize a no effect or safe level. Passive smoking is our third most preventable cause of death. Health concerns range from irritation of eyes and throat and increased respiratory illnesses to increased risk for lung cancer, as well as increased risk for cardiovascular diseases, including heart attacks. Anything less than 75% seating for non-smoking in restaurants does not make sense, since smokers make up about 25% of the adult population. This would be a step in the right direction, which I believe is 100% smoke-free restaurants and other workplaces. A study shows that waitresses have the highest mortality of any predominantly female occupation and are 4 times more likely to die of lung cancer. The reason is simple. They are exposed to levels of tobacco smoke 5 times higher than in a normal workplace and 12 to 20 times higher than in a home with a smoker. The towns of Sandwich, Lee, Lenox, Stockbridge, and Medfield have already passed regulations requiring 100% smoke-free restaurants. In Sandwich, these regulations have already gone in effect. They will go into effect next January in Medfield, and they are being phased in Lee, Lenox, and Stockbridge to be complete by July of 1995. I just spoke with the director of the Arlington Board of Health yesterday, and they are proposing 100% smoke-free restaurants for their town. Prevention is a major key to saving lives, as well as money. Nearly 1/4 of our health care costs are attributed to tobacco. Our Board of Health has accepted the responsibility of proposing regulations that will have a considerable beneficial impact on the health and well-being of many people. We now have the opportunity to act on these public health proposals. Thank you.
All right, you ready to vote? This just requires a majority vote, I believe. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. We move to Article 21. Mrs. Tavernier moves that the town bylaws be amended as set forth in the article, except that Section E52, change Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 230, Section 37 to read Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 270, Section 6. Do I hear a second? Been moved and seconded. Mrs. Tavernier.
Yes, the Board of Selectmen also supports this article, and the Board of Health will present it.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Good evening once again, and thank you for your consideration on the previous bylaw. This bylaw addresses sales to minors. That's what the central issue is here. We began investigating this bylaw on a request from the police department. They had found that children in this community were getting access to cigarettes. Parents were not happy about that. They asked if there were anything that we could do in conjunction with the model regulations provided by the state to help strengthen Acton's ability to keep minors from purchasing cigarettes, keep them from being sold to the minors. Okay, just as a quick example, there was the Department of Public Health conducted a study in towns of Leominster and Fitchburg where a 15-year-old girl was able to purchase cigarettes in 90% of the stores that she went to. So the current state law, which provides for the first offense a $100 fine against selling tobacco to minors, has not proved effective. Just again as a short point, the Department of Public Health today told me that their estimate is approximately $1 billion of cigarettes are sold to minors in this state annually. So it's a problem, and we feel that we can help the police department to enforce the current laws by passage of this bylaw. As again, it's based on model regulations provided by the state. We've held several public meetings on it, including with convenience store owners and vending machine association representatives. Again, we would not be anywhere near the first town in the state to impose such a bylaw. We'd be approximately the 100th. The central issue in this whole bylaw is that we feel that something that such as smoking tobacco, which is an addictive habit, is an adult decision, considering the fact that it will have negative impact on the person's health, and that you should be an adult to make such a decision. Next chart, please. Okay, so very briefly, the purpose of this bylaw is to enforce the current state law, provide more teeth to enforce the current state law against sales to minors. And we do that by having a mechanism to prevent tobacco vendors which have been repeatedly shown to sell to minors. We can prevent them from selling tobacco in the town. Also, one significant way that minors get access to tobacco is through vending machines. This provides a modest control on vending machines. The effect is, first of all, there is regulation, one section on regulation of over-the-counter vendors, second section on regulation of vending machines. Again, this bylaw can be varied in cases of manifest injustice by the Board of Health. And I put it here and underlined, this in no way should impact any adult who chooses to smoke. Okay? It does not restrict anyone who is over 18 their right to obtain tobacco either from vending machines or from whatever store they wish to purchase it from. Okay, I'll address both the vending machines and the vendor regulations separately. The first chart is on vendor regulation. Very briefly, the vendors must get a $25 tobacco sales permit. We've made the cost of this extremely modest so that we cannot be accused of trying to punish people who sell tobacco. Obviously, the bylaw prohibits sales to minors. It requires photo identification for people who are not obviously over 18 years of age. It puts the burden on the owner of the store to make sure that his employees are trained, that they're aware of this bylaw. I don't see that as an unreasonable condition. And the teeth part is 3 violations in 12 months will result in a public hearing with the Board of Health to consider revocation of that person's or that store's permit to sell tobacco in the town of Acton for 12 months. The bylaw authorizes compliance monitoring through attempted purchases by minors under town supervision. I'd just like to address that very briefly. Okay, it's not our intention to turn Acton into a police state. This was put into the bylaw primarily to allow the police department to address complaints. Okay, if in most cases they become aware of a situation through complaints to the police department from parents. Other than posting a policeman 24 hours a day in the store, they have no other way of finding a violator other than by having a minor attempt purchases. I'd also just point out that there was an amendment passed last year. It's called the Sinar Amendment to the Drug and Alcohol Rehabilitation Reorganization Act. It's a federal law. I probably have the name slightly wrong, but it requires all states to conduct annual compliance monitoring of every tobacco vendor or lose that state's federal drug enforcement money. And based on history as a guide, Massachusetts always steps in line when they're threatened with losing money. So regardless of what's in this town bylaw, compliance monitoring is coming. And all this does is this allows the town to have control over that. The next slide is on the vending machine regulation. This was based on substantial comments from the vending machine industry. Vending machines obviously cannot ask for identification. So what the vending machine industry proposed and has been used in many other towns, probably the closest one to us is Framingham, is that the vending machines are equipped with a lockout device. An employee must press a release button before the vending machine can make a sale. And we've structured the bylaw so that obviously the vending machine has to be in full view of the person supervising it, and that person is responsible for making sure that the one who's using it is over 21 years of age. Okay. Then just to close, the schedule is the tobacco sales permits, as we mentioned, would be required in 120 days. The lockout devices on vending machines would be required in 6 months. A longer time period is obviously in recognition of the mechanical considerations of attaching these devices to the machine. Thank you, and again, I ask for your support for this bylaw.
Do we hear comments from the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee makes no recommendation on this article.
Okay, Mr. Aronson.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Once again, I'm speaking on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce. This time we are opposing passage of Article 21 because it too goes too far. We need to understand that we do agree that minors should not be allowed to purchase tobacco products. We do agree that the town should have appropriate regulations to prevent such sales. We even agree that there should be appropriate remedies for anyone who violates such regulations. But that's where the agreement ends. What we don't agree with is the town telling private individuals and businesses how to implement the regulations. Not only will this article prohibit someone from giving tobacco products to anyone as a gift, regardless of age, it requires any signs about tobacco products to be within 10 feet of a supervisor at all times. Furthermore, in addition to requiring annual permits and annual fees, there appear to be no rules that say why the permits can be withheld or in fact what the permits are for. But as vague as these issues are, the rules for creating and monitoring vending machine security devices, in our opinion, range from bizarre to Rube Goldberg-like. Once again, the Chamber opposes the town telling privately owned establishments how to conduct private business. If the law says minors shall not be sold tobacco products, so be it. Let the business owners decide how to comply and how to do it cost-effectively. Businesses are and want to be a valuable asset and resource for the town and its residents. Certainly, young people and organizations in town have relied on businesses for their generosity. Perhaps if the town asked for business input in matters that affect business, it might find that there are ways to conduct business harmoniously with the needs of the town. Until that happens, the Chamber once again respectfully requests that town meeting reject this inappropriately worded Article 21. Thank you.
Did you have a comment specifically that would be appropriate in answering a point Mr. Aronson raised? Go ahead.
I just wanted to point out, sir, that we have worked with the business community. As I mentioned, we held 9 public meetings, including an advertised public hearing. We've had the owners of most of the convenience stores in town and the owner of our large department stores in town at those public hearings. All of them thought these regulations were perfectly appropriate. None of them voiced any concern. Some of the distances in that bylaw were based on their comments. So I feel we have worked with the business community, and they do feel that they can accept these regulations. And as far as letting the business owners decide how to enforce the state law on prohibitions to minors, that's why I opened with a discussion about the fact that, compliance testing has shown that the business owners, without some additional incentive, do a lousy job. In only 10% of the cases do they enforce the law, at least in the studies conducted by the Department of Public Health. So I hope that answers your points.
Okay. We have just one person standing to make a comment. Is it a relatively short comment?
1 minute.
Let's see. Your last one you said 2 minutes. It was 7. Okay, go right ahead.
Okay, I am in favor of Article 21. Anything that will cut down on the sale of tobacco to minors merits support, since 50% of all smokers began using cigarettes by age 14, and 90% of all adult smokers began smoking before age 18. Our Board of Health has taken this problem very seriously and has come up with preventive measures that will keep many of our young people from becoming addicted to nicotine. It has tremendous potential to save lives and to prevent much disease and suffering.
Perfect. Was less than a minute. Any other comment? This requires a simple majority as well. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. No. Motion carries. Article 22. We are coming fairly close to the end, I believe. Mr. Pavin moves that the town amend Section 7 of the Acton zoning bylaw as set forth in the article. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Mr. Pavin.
Thank you. This proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw is specifically relating to Section 7 on signs and advertising devices. As a short background, the sign bylaw as it stands today was substantially rewritten and accepted at the spring 1991 town meeting, based largely on input received in the townwide master plan, which was completed shortly before that. Through several years of implementation and enforcement of this sign bylaw, several issues have come up regarding its enforcement, which bring up the article tonight.
which is reconsidering some of the changes that were made at that time. These comments were received through the Master Plan Coordinating Committee, which represents both public and private interests, as well as comments to the Planning Board itself. The issues that have been raised revolve around issues of interpretation of specific language. The Planning Board has deliberately delayed bringing up any amendments to this article until we had several years of its use so that it could be given the test of time. The 5 issues that are outlined in the article essentially consolidate the enforcement of the sign bylaw and allow discretionary reviews by the Planning Board, and they are briefly as follows. Item A eliminates the requirement for signs in the village districts to be light lettering on dark background. This has had raised some concerns regarding specific businesses with trademarks and logos and has generated many variance requests for relief from that bylaw. The second item, B, clarifies the criteria for signs allowed by special permit and involves some minor wording changes so that the enforcement of that section is much clearer. Items C and D will allow now items by special permit through the discretionary review of the Planning Board versus a Zoning Board of Appeal variance to allow more than one, a single sign to allow more than one symbol, drawing, or product to be displayed, and to allow internally illuminated signs. By allowing the review and approval to be by the Planning Board through a discretionary special permit review, it allows us to do, in fact, that exercise discretion versus the Board of Appeal making specific findings in a much narrower scope. The final item, E, essentially delegates this discretionary review, as I just described, to the Historic District Commission in the historic district areas in town. It is roughly the same equivalent discretionary review that the Planning Board would have. The Planning Board asks your support in this article. I'd be happy to answer questions on it.
Are there other comments from the Finance Committee? Dr. Donald?
The Finance Committee recommends this article.
Other comments? Mr. Aronson.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Again, on behalf of the Chamber, I do have one question and then a quick statement, if I may. Could you repeat your comment about the purpose of the provision allowing a sign to have more than one logo? Does this give you that opportunity to provide that?
This will allow that. That's correct.
Thank you.
Previously, a variance was required.
Great.
Now it will be allowed by special permit.
Mr. Moderator, again, I'm speaking on behalf of the Acton Chamber of Commerce. This time, however, we support the passage of Article 22. The reason for our support is that our representative to the town feels that our input has been sought and listened to in this instant. The sign bylaws are, for the most part, designed to result in attractive and non-obtrusive displays. Unfortunately, once again, they interfere with logical commerce and make our business establishments less competitive. This amendment, however, improves the business environment somewhat without negative impact upon the aesthetics sought by the town. We therefore support the passage of Article 22 and thank the town for including the Chamber in its preparation.
Other comments?
Mr. Moderator?
Yes. Yes, Mrs.
The Board of
Payne.
Selectmen supports this article.
Thank you. Other comments? We'll vote. It takes a 2/3 vote to pass. I'm sure you don't want to count it, so if we could make it unanimous, it would be very nice. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 23. Mr. Hill moves that the town amend the Acton zoning bylaw as set forth in this article. Mr. Hill.
I'm going to use the overhead if I could. Almost broken. Okay, I'm going to read through this rather quickly. First of all, it's to rebuild non-conforming multifamily buildings. What is affected? It's non-conforming multifamily buildings, the owner of which wishes to rebuild as a multifamily. First of all, what's a non-conforming multifamily? It's a multifamily that's in a single-family zone. The zoning was changed after the multifamily was established, so the use is grandfathered. What can be done under present zoning? If the multifamily is destroyed by fire or other natural causes, or the owner wishes to demolish it, any new construction must comply with current zoning, which means usually build a single family. What this amendment would allow is if the owner wishes to tear down the building or the building is destroyed by fire or other natural causes, and if the owner wishes to rebuild as a multifamily, then the owner must seek and be granted a special permit. What's not allowed? Under no circumstances may a non-conforming multifamily be built on an empty lot or replace a conforming structure. What protection is proposed? The special permitting process requires a public hearing with prior notice to the abutting property owners. Neighbors and others will get a chance to be heard before the decision is made on the special permit. Why are we proposing this? Multifamilies provide much of the affordable housing available in Acton. A significant percentage of these are non-conforming. Without this amendment, there is no option to an owner that loses a non-conforming multifamily to fire or who wishes to raise and rebuild the property other than comply with the current zoning. Additionally, a fire or other natural disaster can potentially displace multiple families with little possibility of return without this amendment. Just to give you an idea, there are over 100 non-conforming multifamilies in Acton. Most of these are within a half a mile or so of the West Acton or South Acton Village or on Parker Street. And here's a map. The red squares are where the non-conforming multifamilies are. The Planning Board urges you to pass this.
Other comment, part of the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen would urge your unanimous support of this article.
Finance Committee, Dr. Donald.
The Finance Committee also recommends the article.
Anybody wishing to speak to this article? Yes, ma'am.
Ann Forbes, 25 Martin Street. I'm also on the Historic District Commission. I'm trying to understand some of the ultimate implications of this change, which is really a major change in a part of the zoning bylaw, and I'm wondering if there aren't places where it might come right up against another one of our bylaws, which is the demolition delay bylaw. I'm leery that this particular provision might have a greater impact on older buildings, especially some of our historic properties which are outside of the historic districts, and make it more likely that an owner would want to demolish them on purpose. One reason I wonder about this is a case that happened a few years ago with a house in South Acton, which was a non-conforming 4-unit building. The owners applied for permission under the demolition delay bylaw to demolish the house because they wanted to put up a 5-unit building. It was already non-conforming. It was a single-family residential neighborhood, and the permit to demolish the house was denied, partly because of the support of current zoning behind it. So could you tell me how this new provision would come into play in a case such as that proposal? Could an owner build a building of potentially more units, for instance, after demolishing an existing non-conforming building?
First of all, additional units is one of the provisions that's clearly denied. An owner could not demolish a 4-unit building and build a 5-unit building. Additionally, historical nature and other construction features would be taken into account during the special permitting process.
Okay. Seeing no one else standing, we will vote. It takes 2/3 to pass. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Well, let's see. Do we want to count it at this hour? I doubt it. Let's try that vote again. If it's not unanimous, it has to be counted. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Article 24 was passed by consent. Article 25. Mrs. Giorgio moves that we take no action under Article 25. Do I hear a second? Who's going to speak to this? Is Mrs. Giorgio here?
I'll speak to it.
Mrs. Giorgio is not here? She is here, all right. Are you going to speak to this? Or will Mr. Mullen speak to it? You'll speak to it. Great.
Article 25 is the van accessible parking space bylaw. Simply, we're recommending no action be taken. Can't hear. We're recommending that no action be taken at this time because this proposed bylaw came before the planning board very recently. We feel we've not had enough time to consider the ramifications of the bylaw. Therefore, we'd like to have some more time to look at it and possibly bring it back to you at the fall town meeting.
Thank you. Any other comment?
The selectmen concur with that.
Finance Committee. Yes, Mr. Kohout.
Finance Committee makes no recommendation on this article.
All right, all in favor of taking no action on Article 25, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Motion carries. Article 26 has been passed by consent, as has Article 27. Article 28 was a consent article, but it was held. Dealing with street acceptances. Mr. Mullen moves in the words of the article. Do I hear a second? It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Mullen.
This is a standard article that comes up at the annual town meeting and periodically elsewise when there are streets and towns that have met all of the provisions of our laws, and these two streets have done so, and as such, we recommend the article.
Comment from the Finance Committee.
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee recommends approval.
Other comment? Finance Committee recommended approval. Seeing no one standing, we'll vote. All in favor of the motion as read under Article 28, say... Oh, I'm sorry. Gentleman at the back.
Do I have the speaker?
You do.
Oh, good. I'm Frank Manter, Summer Street. And I have a point of information, please. At this point, can I make an amendment or can I make a motion to this to suggest that it be tabled to a further meeting?
You can make either.
Okay. In the event that I can make a motion, I'd like to move that the portion of this article that pertains to Autumn Lane be tabled to the next regularly scheduled annual meeting in the spring of 1994.
I know it needs a second. One moment. Let me tell you what you've done.
Well, you've been a great help to many people so far tonight, and I appreciate that. Maybe you can help me as well.
Well, what you've done, if you table this, it becomes non-debatable, and therefore you can't tell people why you want to do it. But it
Okay.
takes a two-thirds majority to pass. If you want to delete Autumn Lane as an amendment, you can delete it, and then you can tell people why you want to do it. And it takes a majority to pass. So you've got a couple of choices. Now, you move to table it. I'll let you withdraw your motion if you wish. If not, I'll let you proceed with it.
Well, my intent was to put this before the floor. So based on your presentation, you're suggesting that I should remove my amendment, and my movement and request an amendment.
And your amendment, I'm just being a little touchy on form. Your amendment is to do what, sir?
What I would like to do, if I can just say that, is I would like to discuss Autumn Lane separately. And whatever means is appropriate in this forum is what I would like to do.
Your amendment, if I understand it, is to remove from this article the words "in the Autumn Lane subdivision," the paragraph headed Autumn Lane with 4 lines in it. Is that correct?
That's correct. I'd like to discuss that separately.
We'll work the words out. Do I hear a second to the amendment? It's been moved and seconded. Now, brief discussion of why you'd like to pass this amendment.
Well, first let me say that I support growth, and I appreciate the new neighbors that come with this. However, this particular cul-de-sac has a deficiency. Specifically, the last 2 meetings, this last Monday night and the 2 Monday nights prior to this, I drove through that cul-de-sac, and it has in it, in the loop portion, a rather large puddle which isn't draining into the catch basin on the east side. The west side seems to be working fine. To me, that means that the road isn't meeting all the requirements. From what I've been able to observe and understand, while the road was under construction, the town engineer inspected it in 1990 and determined that everything was draining appropriately. Since that time, why I understand that new surfaces have been added, and apparently it's not draining appropriately, and I really don't know why. To me, it seems prudent that if there's something that's wrong with that road, then we really ought to not accept it until we know that it is right, and that's the whole issue.
Okay, thank you, sir. Other comment on the amendment? Does anybody wish to speak to the amendment? Mr. Mullen?
The selectmen would oppose the amendment, and I will defer to James Lee, who would like to speak on that.
Sure. Go ahead, sir.
James Lee, 14 Musket Drive. Can I be heard? Anticipating that this may have been the street that was not considered acceptable, today I went out this afternoon and inspected that street together with the engineering division and the planning division. The street has been found to be fully acceptable by the engineering division, and this has been so stated. I could not observe any problems there today. As those of you who were here last night know, we had a considerable amount of rain last night. There was no evidence of any ponding or any unevenness in that street. It seems, from my perspective and from just visual appearance, it looked to be well paved. The pavement is good condition. We inspected the drains. The drains are working. The drains are in good condition. In all respects that I could discern, and I happen to be a professional registered engineer in the state of Massachusetts, the street was definitely acceptable and meets all of the town criteria. I thank you.
Are there other comments on the amendment? All right, seeing nobody, yes, do you want to make another comment, sir?
Yes, may I just reiterate that last night I stood in the water, and being a professional engineer, I think I can tell the difference between water standing and no water. All professional judgment aside. Thank you.
All right, we'll vote on the amendment. One brief comment then, sir.
It's a brief comment. I only wish to know what is the impact of deleting as the gentleman requests to delete, I mean, we have two statements of fact that oppose each other. If it is deleted, what is the impact? Does it have any financial or other impact as to why we shouldn't agree with one gentleman versus another? I mean, holding it as a public road, we're bound to keep it forever. Waiting for a further engineering approval, we can find out what the actual facts are. What's the problem with delaying?
Mr. Mullen.
The road would remain a private road, and the owners would be responsible for its maintenance. They could come again and petition at some later time for its acceptance.
Are any of those owners present?
They would not have to change the road in any way.
Are any of their owners present? So they don't care if it's certified.
Well, I think we're ready to vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Opposed to the amendment, say no. The amendment has lost. We'll now vote on the motion as read. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed, say no. The motion is carried. Article 29. Amendment to the non-criminal bylaw. Mrs. Tavernier moves that the town amend the town bylaws as set forth in this article. Do I hear a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded. Mrs. Tavernier.
This article was held, and if the person who held it has a question, I'd be happy to answer it. Otherwise, I think the summary is self-explanatory.
Does anybody wish to ask a question on this article? Seeing nobody standing, it was on the consent calendar, it was removed. All in favor of the article, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. The motion is carried unanimously. Article 30 was passed by consent. 31, 32, 33, 34, and that's it. Mrs. Tavernier.
Mr. Moderator, I move to dissolve this town meeting.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor of dissolving the 1993 annual town meeting, say aye. Opposed, say no. The meeting is dissolved. Thank you very much.
Gene and Steve should get sworn.
We're going to do this money.